Hi students, and welcome to today's live Ielts class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here, the capital city of British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a fantastic start to their weekend, staying healthy, staying strong and productive. Welcome Hans, welcome Mohit, welcome members. This is a members chat class. Everybody's welcome to watch. To become a member, click the join button next to the subscribe button. If you don't see that button, just send us an email. I'll show you that in a moment. While we wait for some members, this lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, visit us there. And for general IELTS, check us out at ieltshelp.com. That's general IELTS help. On both of those websites, we have lots and lots of help to improve your speaking, reading, writing, listening skills. This is a speaking class, students. We are focusing on speaking part 2, the cue card, and we're going to practice giving a Band 9 long answer. And it is speaking, so make sure to speak and repeat. Copy my intonation, my pronunciation, my enunciation. I'm quite an animated person and it's fun. So if you speak like me, you'll do well. All right. Welcome, Paulo. While we wait for a few more members, this is the General IELTS web portal here at gieltshelp.com. You can click this big red button there to join our premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. For the academic version, it's the blue background, and again, you can click that big red button. When you do, you'll have a My Student account where you'll have access to computer-based practice exams, interactive course, lots and lots of HD videos, and then of course, student partner speaking practice as well. So if you click on that, you should be able to find some other students to practice with. Indeed, we have a few students in here waiting for somebody to practice their IELTS video or audio. So make sure to do that. It's good. Use that daily. All right. Now, just one more important announcement. We will be releasing an exciting new video series called My IELTS Band 9 Journey. That's right. A few months ago, I sat the official IELTS exam to get the candidate experience and give you a look at what the IELTS is really like. So we are starting that with part 1, which is my test registration, and that will be premiering on our channel tomorrow. That's of course an HD video at 14 o'clock Universal Standard Time, which is 90 minutes from this time right now. Okay, so if you can, definitely participate. You'll learn lots of important details about what to pay attention to when you're registering for your IELTS exam. Welcome, Nick Hill, Devansh, good to have you here. If you have any questions about the IELTS or about our product, send me an email, or about becoming a member of our YouTube channel, Adrian at aehelp.com. Hi, Deepika. Okay, everyone, so we've got the speaking part 2 class right now. It will be followed by speaking part 3. Tomorrow we'll have that video premiere for you, and then Monday, Tuesday we'll have a short break, and I'll be back on the 1st of September with speaking part 1 for everyone. So this new schedule will be up on our YouTube community posts. And now let's get into our part 2 speaking cue card. Okay, so the IELTS exam, your speaking is about 12 minutes. People used to say 15 minutes, but I really think that most IELTS speaking interviews do not go over 12 minutes. IELTS has become so popular these days around the world. I don't know if any of you know this, but last year, even with COVID, more than 3 million people sat the IELTS exam, which is absolutely incredible. Okay, so IELTS is definitely here to stay. So you have about 12 minutes for the speaking interview. Part 1 will take about 4 or 5 minutes because you do your introduction, you show your passport. The examiner will ask some questions about you. And then for part 2, you do something that's a little bit unusual. And so you really have to practice for part 2. Even as a native speaker sitting the Ielts exam, you have to practice for part 2 because it's basically a mini presentation that's very fast. It's on the spot. You have to use some quick critical thinking. So after part 1, the examiner will say, that's the end of part 1. Now we will continue with part 2. For this part, I will show you some questions. You will have 1 minute to read these questions, think about your answers, take notes if you wish. You have some note paper in front of you. You have your pen. I will tell you when to start, when to stop. Your 1 minute preparation time begins now. Talk about a time when you returned something you bought to the shop. Okay, and then they'll say your 1 minute preparation time begins now, and they'll read this topic statement for you. Okay, Ria, welcome to our group of members. Make sure to send me an email so we can hook you up with those exclusive videos and join right into the chat. Okay, so get right in there. All right, so your 1 minute preparation time begins, and again, you have to be calm by this time. It's really important that you're not nervous anymore. So even if you started a little bit nervous in part 1, by this time, you need to be really focused. You need to be concentrating on strategy. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's your ticket. That's your recipe for success, is to go through the proper steps to achieve a high band score. Okay, so what is your step 1, members? We've talked about this in the past. Step 1 is very important. All these steps are important. Step 1, what do you do? What should you really pay attention to when the examiner starts this 1 minute? It's very critical because a lot of students make a fundamental mistake here, and they forget to answer 1 or 2 questions on the card. Yeah, so Nick Hill says read the questions twice. Yeah, and there's 2 actually important reasons for that. One is to make sure that you really understand the questions. And the second one is that you don't miss answering any questions. Okay, so read the questions and the topic twice so that you are absolutely clear on what you need to say, and so you do not miss any questions. If you miss answering the questions on the card, you will lose band scores. There's a very good chance that you're going to lose band scores, at least a half band off the top, if you don't answer all of the questions on the card. So you need to read these questions. You need to read them twice. Read them nice and smooth. Don't be too fast. It shouldn't take you more than a few seconds, okay? They're very basic questions usually. So talk about a time when you returned something you bought to the shop. What was it? When and where was it? Why did you decide to return it? What happened with the item in the end? Okay, so what was it? When and where was it? Why did you decide to return it? What happened with the item in the end? All right, so you've read this twice. Now, what is your step 2? Okay, so I know we've got some longtime members in the class, and you should know this. Okay, all right. Kumar, I can see that you're getting right into it, and I appreciate your ambition, but we're still in this 1 minute preparation time, and I definitely wouldn't just get right into it. So I'd be a little bit patient, okay? So for instance, Kumar, you're using the word stuff, which we don't use in plural, stuffs, and you definitely want to avoid that, okay? Welcome, Deanne Gomez, to our group of members. Make sure to send me an email so we can hook you up with the perks. Okay, so Nick Hill says, identify the tense and the category. Okay, and Mohit says that's an object in this case. Yeah, absolutely. So Building clarity and having a good answer is very important. Kumar, really pay attention here to these steps, okay? These are happening quite quickly in the 1 minute, but they will ensure that you get a better mark, not just in part 2, but also part 3 of the speaking. And part 3 will be the next class after this one, okay? So in the second step, we identify the topic and the category and the tense that we use, okay? So the topic here is a returned item, which of course the category here then is an object. And then the tense that we use, we'll talk about that in a moment. Before we talk about that, let's talk about an object. When you talk about an object, what are the basic elements to describing an object clearly to a listener, especially someone who doesn't know you, who has no idea what you're talking about, okay? So when you talk about an object, what do you include in order for your listener to have a great amount of clarity? And the order of information is very important here. Okay, and Kumar, this is where, even if you were to talk about a book, you'd want to go through these steps a little bit more carefully so that you have a better response. Okay. Deepika, it's not so much an event because you're talking, well, it's a bit of an event as well, but it's more about the object here than the event. So it's a good question, Deepika. It's an object. And it's a bit of an event because you did return it, right? So it's a time when you returned something. But it's more of the object because it focuses on the object. The object is something that you bought. There's a reason you bought it. There's a reason you needed this object. Then there was something wrong with this object, obviously, or something that you didn't need. So you return the object. So it's more about the object than the event. The object is dominant here, okay? So Nick Hill says that in order to talk about this, you want to talk about the appearance of the object, so what this object looks like, the origin, where you got the object, the function, yeah, so how this object works, and then the significance, right? So why you needed this object, okay? And Deepika is that's quite clever, Deepika. So Deepika's saying it's kind of an event as well, right? So indeed it is, and that will help you to build even more fluency and more content, recognizing that it's an event, right? So with the event, you can consider concepts like location, attendees, and activities. Okay. So you think about the location. Now the location will likely be a match with the origin. So where you got the object, that's going to be the location. So in Kumar's case, it would be the bookstore if that book was from a specific bookstore in the neighborhood, right? The attendees would be you and the salesperson or the customer service agent. Or maybe the manager at the store, right? And then the activities are actually the activity of returning the object or the use of the object, all right? Okay, so the tense. So for this question, and for the tense, to figure out what should be the tenses that you should be including in your response, you're really paying attention to the topic sentence. So talk about a time when you return something you bought at a shop. So what kind of a tense would we expect to hear often to respond in this case? Okay, so Deepika says maybe some past perfect, like I had bought. Yeah, I agree, Deepika. So past perfect is there. Yeah. Past simple. Mohit, present perfect. Very good. Yeah, so definitely not a lot of future. I know some people see this like past, present, future kind of strategy, but In this one, it's mostly the past, right? It's a past event. So Ken says present simple, a perfect past simple. I mean, you can keep listing a lot, but let's focus on the ones that you would use most. So past perfect, present perfect, past simple. And what else? So if you think about this, there's kind of another type of grammar, or I don't want to maybe say tense here, but another type of grammar that might come into play would be conditional. Okay, that's not really a tense, but that would be a good one to hold in your mind as well. So some conditional grammar, like if I had used this object, I would have injured myself, for example. Okay, so I bought a blender or a vacuum cleaner. It was defective. It was making strange sounds. If I had gone ahead and used it, I would have likely injured myself. So some conditional would be good here as well. Okay. All right. So good. This happens very quickly. So this is what you practice at home before the IELTS so that you can identify the topic and the category and the tense very quickly. You're not writing any of this down in the real exam. When you're practicing for IELTS, you're writing all of this down. When you're doing the official exam, this is all happening within a matter of seconds in your head, okay? Because you practiced at home and you know what to do, okay? And in step 3, and this is a critical step, and Kumar, I think this is the step that you really kind of skipped over here, but it's a very, very important step for your cue card success, especially if you want to get that high band, like a band 8, band 9. This is what you really, really have to pay attention to, okay? Deepika, conditional grammar is when you have a condition, like if this, then that. So if I buy a defective product, then I will return it to the store. Or if I buy a product that is too expensive and I learn that you can buy it much cheaper somewhere else, I will return it to the store. So it's the if this, then that grammar, okay? Nick Hill says get 2 to 3 ideas that you can work with. Absolutely, that's your next step. So you want to think of a couple of different ideas. Don't just settle for the first idea. So Kumar, I'm not sure if the book was the first idea that came to mind, but you should never just jump at the first idea that comes to mind. So think of 2 to 3 possible answers and choose the best one. Okay? You should not jump at the first idea that comes to mind. That is definitely the most critical mistake that we see many students make, is they think about one idea and then they go with it, like car. I returned a car to the car dealership, and that's the first idea they come up with, and then they try to talk about it and they realize that talking about a car and discussing the mechanical difficulties or certain reasons why they don't like the car is actually quite challenging. They get into difficult English. They get stuck for ideas. They start to repeat the same sentence over and over again. So I returned the car, and that's why I gave the car back, and I didn't need the car, and then I got another car. And it's just kind of this windmill of information that's being repeated, and the mark is fairly weak, even if their English is quite good. Okay, so you want to avoid that, and the way to avoid that is to think of a few different ideas. So think of ideas that are easy to talk about. Okay. Lots of information. And original. Okay. So it's something that isn't being said by lots of other students. And I think a book is not a bad idea, Kumar. So a book would be okay. You'd have to be very clear on what that book is. Okay. All right. So what are some objects that you think are commonly returned to the store? So let's think of some answers for this. Okay. Deepika, a wrong product that was delivered by an online shop. What is the product? So don't think about it generally. Ken, if you think of books, think of a specific book. Okay, so don't just think generally books. Okay, you want to be specific here. All right, so be specific. Okay. So Deepika, a top, I think you meant to write maybe a toy. Okay, so Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's a book. And maybe it's damaged. Okay, missing pages or something. All right, sure. So that would be a good idea. You'd have to think about all of that at once, right? Okay, Mohit says a ladder. Now, a ladder's okay, Mohit. Remember, there are different types of ladders, right? So a ladder's good. I would go with a step ladder that is uneven. Ooh, that would be dangerous. Yeah. Okay, Nick Hill says Nike shoes. Okay, that's not a bad one, Nick Hill, but again, remember, you don't want to get into trouble talking about that. So Nike shoes, t-shirt, wrong size, defective. So the Nike shoes, one of the common problems that people have with shoes for taking them back is the bottom of the shoe coming off. Now, what is that called? So here is where you have to know the English vocabulary, because if you wouldn't use that vocabulary, you would probably lose half a band score. So what is the bottom of the shoe called that can come off if it's not glued or stitched properly? Ah, Mohit, very good. That was very fast, Mohit. Good for you. I know that you weren't searching it. It's the sole. Nike shoes. Yeah, the sole came off. Very good, Nick Hill. The sole is the bottom of your shoe. Okay. All right, very good. All right. Clothing, I probably wouldn't go with, because I think clothing, a lot of students would choose to talk about it, returning a pair of pants or a t-shirt or a hat. That would be a very common answer. It would be hard to be original with that, and there's not too much information about it, so especially if it's not real, if you're making it up, you might get stuck. So I would avoid clothing. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the Nike shoes that the sole came off. So here you have a damaged book with some missing pages, a step ladder that is uneven, and Nike shoes where the sole was coming off the shoe. If I thought about these three options, I would probably go with the Nike shoes with the sole coming off, as long as I know the word sole. If I don't know the word sole, I would probably go with the uneven step ladder, okay? Or the uneven ladder, all right? Devansh, I would stay away from computers and mobile phones in this case. Not only would they be a popular topic, but they would be a difficult topic to discuss clearly without repeating information. So I would stay away from it. Okay, so let's talk about shoes. Maybe we'll learn some language here. And it is one of the common items that's returned. Okay, so next step 4, are to write notes. Okay. And you want to think of the category, all right? So first of all, what is the first point that we want to discuss the appearance, right? So as long as you know the category, you'll be fast here. Now, you don't need to write appearance. This is just for practice, right? So you just write the note. So what do these shoes look like? Okay. Give me some words or vocabulary to describe Nike shoes. Okay, so you've got some Nike shoes here. What kind of shoes are they? What do they look like? Give me a little bit about its appearance. Okay. And I'm sure a lot of you have an image of Nike shoes in your mind, so you can describe its looks. When you describe its looks, be quantitative. You can talk about its size as well. Okay, so again, details, lexical resource, you're picking up marks, right? You don't need to spend much time on the appearance, just 1 or 2 sentences, a few seconds. Again, that'll help. Kumar says Nike sports shoes. Nikes are usually sports shoes, Kumar, so let's try to be a little bit more specific. Okay, so Rashika says size 5, black, white, swoosh. Okay, that's the Nike swoosh. It's basically on every shoe, and if you didn't know that, now you know. Some people call it a check mark, but Nike actually calls it the Nike swoosh. Okay, let's say that they're running sneakers. Yeah, memory foam, sure. Okay, good. All right. D-Brock says they're Air Force One leather shoes, size 9. Okay, all right. Ken, I wouldn't say quite dirty. It's pretty hard to return shoes if they're quite dirty. All right, so you have to be realistic. Origin. So where did you get these shoes? All right. Here, I'm going to write a couple of things, but, write this as well. I'm curious what you will come up with. Remember, you always want to come up with information that is easy to talk about. Okay, so keep that in mind. So, origin, where did you get these shoes? Where do they come from? Okay. All right. So Paulo says, bought it at a Nike outlet store downtown. Very nice. Yeah, outlet store. Paulo, using that kind of vocabulary, that will give you lexical resource marks, okay? Outlet stores are large stores that are outside of the city, usually which have a large selection of some products that might not be the latest, but they're still new. Yeah. Okay. Rashika says an authentic Nike retailer. Sure. Okay. Origin. All right. Very good. Function. So what was your plan for these shoes? Okay. This is very, very important here. All right. So what did you want to do with these shoes? Paulo says it's actually where I bought my Nike running shoes. Yeah, so Paulo, and this is for everybody, if you can think of a real situation that fits with the cue card, that's great. Okay, especially if it's unique and original. Still think of a few different options. And in this case, Paulo, even if your shoes aren't defective, as Nike shoes usually aren't, Nike shoes are usually quite good quality. And if they're not defective, that's fine. You can use that situation and change it a little bit and imagine that they are defective, right? So when you're thinking about this cue card, if I were to sit the IELTS exam, I would probably just think of some actual shopping experiences that I had recently, like buying shoes. Not necessarily where the product is defective, just some shopping experiences, and then add or imagine this part of the event or situation where the product or the object is defective, right? So Mohit says for jogging, walking, going to the gym. Okay. All right, very good. What's the significance? Okay. So, very good. So for a walk, to play on the football team, in my neighborhood OS, that's also good. What's the significance of these shoes? So why do you have these shoes other than, of course, the function of the shoes? Okay. So maybe to look stylish, right? All right. If you're going to go jogging, might as well look good doing it, or when you go for a walk, right? Rashika says longevity. So yeah, Rashika, I think that's maybe a little bit over the top saying longevity, but to be healthy. Okay. To be healthy, to be fit, maybe to lose some weight. Okay. So these shoes are important for you. All right. Okay, now don't forget the questions on the cue card, right? Okay, so next step, step 5, we've got one more step, is what? So we've got some notes, we've got some clear ideas, we're talking about these Nike shoes. What's my next step? Okay. Apollo, sticking to real situations is not bad because it helps your brain think of information quickly. What you want to do is you want to adapt the real situation to fit with the card. That's actually a very, very good strategy. Okay. So I'll make a note of that because I haven't really emphasized that in the past, but it is a very good idea. And I did that in my past Ielts exam that we're going to be releasing the videos on as well. So I actually took a real situation in my life and I adapted it to the cue card. So taking real situations from your life and adapting these to cue card questions is a great strategy. Okay, and I highly encourage you to practice that. It's not always possible. Sometimes you get a cue card where you're like, oh, I've never really had that kind of experience. So you have to be ready for that, but that's fine. Okay. All right. Prepare the first sentence. Yeah, exactly, Mohit. Very good. So prepare the first sentence. So before the 1 minute is up, right? Get your first sentence ready. Couple of reasons for this. You want to have lots of information and you want to show fluency. So when students get stuck for their first sentence, or when they use some kind of a template phrase like, well, I have returned a lot of different items over the years, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about an item that I returned today. I would like to talk about a pair of Nike shoes. Whoa, did this guy just talk for 20 seconds before actually saying the topic, Nike shoes? That's not a good approach, okay? These kinds of starts get a low band score because they're not original, and especially if students get stuck, if they're like, it's also showing a lack of fluency. So you don't want to do that, okay? Instead, you want to be very direct with your response, specific and direct, all right? So you want to have your first sentence ready, okay? All plural, right? Shoes, you got a pair of shoes, there's 2 of them. So your very first sentence might be something like this, okay? And again, this is speaking, so make sure to speak and repeat. About 6 months ago, I had to return a pair of Nike running shoes to the retailer as they were defective. Okay? Defective meaning that they weren't in the designed condition. Okay? Rashika, a pair of. Okay, a pair of Nike shoes were items that I returned to the shop after purchase. Shoes, plural, too. You have to use all plurals here, students. Again, that's something you want to be careful about. So as soon as you realize you're talking about shoes, you're using all plurals. And if you say the item I purchased, OS, like you're doing, that's still okay because we can kind of consider it as one item. But if you say the items, then that's also okay. So the item I purchased and returned recently was Nike shoes because the sole came off. It was late March. I wouldn't actually go into why I returned them, OS, right in the first sentence. So I wouldn't go into the detail of the sole coming off. That I would probably do a little bit later, okay? So I would give more attention to that so that I can talk about it in more detail. It's okay, but I wouldn't mention that in the first sentence. Deepika says, a time when I had to return a product to the shop was exchanging a pair of defective Nike shoes. Deepika, that is beautiful. It's very nice, natural, original English, and it's very real English. So that's something that I would absolutely hear one of my friends say, okay? So if a friend of mine talked about this topic and said, hey, Adrian, there was a time I actually had to return a product recently to the shop. I had to exchange a pair of defective Nike shoes. Perfect English. Okay, nice fluency. Very good. All right. So again, about 6 months ago, I had to return a pair of Nike running shoes to the retailer as they were defective. And then now, all you have to do is go through your notes and make full sentences. Okay, so that's all you need to do. So the first thing I do is talk about the appearance. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a little bit, build up a bit of fluency here. You do the same, and I will check the chat. But again, all we do now is take these pieces of information and put them into context. So size 5, black, white Nike swoosh, running, memory foam. Okay, so okay, so there's my description. Why do we describe objects? For the same reason that we describe people's appearance when we're talking about people for part 2 cue cards, so that our listener can visualize, can imagine, okay? Communication is much, much more powerful when we can see the object that we're talking about. That's why we want to spend time on this, okay? All right, Bahrat said, I had not been bought, but I had bought, Bahrat, you're actively buying the shoes, okay? I had bought a pair of shoes 2 months back and decided to return these because I started to get foot pain and discomfort while wearing them. All right, Bahrat, in our case, the sole of the shoe came off, which means the bottom. But if that was your reason, then sure, you can go with that, okay? So I had bought the shoes 2 weeks prior to returning them. These shoes are Nike Pegasus running sneakers, black color with a white swoosh and memory foam. They felt very comfortable, a perfect size 5 fit. Okay, a couple of corrections here to my speaking. All right. Okay, so all right. So again, the function of the shoes is to go for runs, go to the gym. So I needed these shoes because I had decided to go jogging regularly and to the gym so I could lose a bit of weight and get healthy. Okay. All right. So that's the actual function of these shoes. So jogging and to the gym. When you're talking about an object, talk about the function. Okay. Now, the reason for returning them, right? So let's not forget about the card. Okay, so here I'm being very fluent because I have all of those elements from my notes, all of the elements talking about an object and the questions on the cue card moving around in my head. So I've got some clarity and direction with those, okay? So, however, after only one use, a 30-minute jog, I noticed that the sole of the left shoe became detached at the heel. The heel is the back of the shoe. So immediately I decided to take them back to Sport Check where I had bought them and got them exchanged for a new pair. Okay. All right. So far, so good. Okay. Now, at this point, I want to keep in mind the cue card, and it's totally okay to stop and look at your notes and to look at the questions to see that you're answering all of them. Go through the questions. So, what was it? Okay, I talked about it. When and where was it? I've talked about that now. Why did you decide to return it? I talked about it. And what happened with the item in the end? I haven't talked about that yet. Okay. So let's see what some of you are writing meanwhile. Devon says, just a month ago, I had to return my new Nike shoes to the retailer because they tore in the first week. Okay. Nikhil says, I had bought the shoes 5 days prior to returning them. They were black in color with a white swoosh and memory foam. Very good, Nikhil, making use of those notes. Deepika says, I had bought them at a local Nike showroom downtown. I had planned to use them for jogging in the morning around my neighborhood. Very good, Deepika. So you've got good visual information and flow there. Ois says, I have 5 different types of shoes, but I needed the Nike shoes because I go for a walk almost every day, and the other reason was to join the local football team. Ois, I don't care about your 5 other types of shoes. Don't talk about that. That's off topic. I only care about the Nike shoes that you returned. Okay, that's the topic of the card. So stay focused. Otherwise, Ois, the second half is good. Okay. Rashika says, I bought this pair of Nike shoes 2 months ago and I returned them because they were defective. Rashika, don't repeat shoes there, because they were defective. Okay. Nike says, they're quite cozy and perfect for me, but I had to return them since the sole of the right shoe came off. Even though I had not used them all that much, the sole just got detached. They weren't glued or stitched properly. Yeah. Buckrat says it was a Nike brand made whitish color around size 7. I required these shoes because I had decided to go for a jog 2 kilometers each day to lose some weight. Okay, Buckrat, good. All right, so you have function there, right? Okay, good. So when I took them back to the sports store, okay, so here I was just building a bit of fluency near the end to include all of that last information from the cue card questions and from my notes. All right, so here we go, everyone. Let's do this together. And so once again, we're talking about an item that we had bought and we needed to return, okay? And it's not something somebody else bought. So be really careful if you talk about a birthday gift or something that your parents bought you, you'd be in trouble here because it's something that you bought. So you have to be very careful, pay attention, okay? What was it? When and where was it? Why did you decide to return it? What happened with the item in the end? Here we go. So the examiner says, okay, Adrian, your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking. Make sure to speak and repeat, everyone, and notice all this past tense here. So about 6 months ago, I had to return a pair of Nike running shoes to the retailer as they were defective. I had bought the shoes 2 weeks prior to returning them. These shoes were Nike Pegasus running sneakers, black color with a white swoosh and memory foam. They felt very comfortable, a perfect size 5 fit. I needed these shoes because I had decided to go jogging regularly and to the gym so I could lose a bit of weight and get healthy. However, after only one use, a 30-minute jog, I noticed the sole of the left shoe became detached at the heel, so I immediately decided to take them back to Sport Check where I had bought them and got them exchanged for a new pair. When I took them back to the sports store, I had no problem returning them as they were still under warranty. I'd kept the original receipt and the salesperson even recognized me. They assured me that these are good quality shoes usually and I shouldn't have problem with another pair. Indeed, I really liked the look and feel of these shoes, so I decided to exchange them for the exact same model and size. I think in the end, the store must have sent the shoes back to Nike for a refund and to investigate why this had happened. Anyways, I'm happy with my new pair and they work just great for my exercise needs. The sole has stayed in place for the last few jogs. Okay, so that's how you would do it. And then the examiner would say, okay, that's the end of part 2. Now we will continue with part 3. For part 3, I will ask you a question that's connected to your part 2 response and some questions related to the topic of part 2. And that's exactly what we're going to do in 30 minutes, everyone. We're going to do part 3 with those follow-up questions. So great job, members, answering these questions, hanging in there. Kumar and other students, do you see how that planning really goes a long way to come up with a much more fluent and better structured response? Notice how I didn't use the word stuff or things anywhere. Okay, those are not good words to use in your speaking. You want good structure, no repetition, original, lots of detail. That's how you get your band 9. Okay? All right. A great participation, everyone. Debrock, Nikhil, Ois, some really nice commenting in today's class. Mohit, some very quick, clever answers today. Hang around, come back in 30 minutes. And remember, for all of our viewers, to get HD videos, practice exams, interactive courses, mobile apps, go to aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gltshelp.com for general IELTS. We are world leaders when it comes to IELTS exam preparation. Okay? All right. Kumar says, yep, thank you. All right. Glad you guys picked up some valuable info there. Again, I will be back in 30 minutes with speaking part 3. Bye for now.